And it looks like we are live. All right. Well, good morning. Hello, friends on Facebook. We haven't, I'm trying to think. It's been a while. I took all of December off from recording podcast episodes. But I'm excited today. We're back at it. And my good friend Laura Link is going to be my very first interview for 2021. I think it'll be such a fun way to kick off the new year. All right, so let's see. All right, I'm going to do a cheesy like 3, 2, 1 countdown. That way the podcast editor knows like where to actually start the interview, okay? All right, here we go. 3. Welcome to the Allison Loves Math podcast. I'm super excited to introduce today's guest, Laura Link. She's a certified classroom teacher and academic tutor. She's been helping students raise their ACT and SAT scores for 13 years. She's the founder of Link Private Tutoring, and she's the communication director of the National Test Prep Association, an organization that promotes equity and ethics in testing. So welcome, Laura. I'm so excited to have you here today.
Hi, I'm so happy to be here as well.
So the topic that we are talking about today is, helping our kids prepare for the ACT. Now, I know from my own experience, doing SAT prep and ACT prep way back in the day, something really common that happened was that it would be the end of junior year, a student would bomb the SAT or the ACT, and then all of a sudden the family's just, in a panic. They don't know what to do. They're scrambling to prepare. What is your advice for maybe just avoiding that situation?
I do have some advice for avoiding that, but when you said that, I was thinking, and it's even worse now because we've got students who tried to take the test in June and then it was canceled, tried to take it in July and then it was canceled, and they were like, I was preparing, I was starting, early, and then the tests were canceled, finally got a test in December, and then some people are having their tests being not canceled, but moved to different locations, and then they have to drive an hour. I'm telling y'all, if that happens, just drive the hour. Just take the test because you don't want to be stressed.
Oh my gosh, I feel for the students. I feel for them this year because these tests are stressful enough anyways, but add in all of that chaos and uncertainty, and I'm getting stressed just thinking about it.
It is, and you don't want that. But if we could roll back the time machine, right, for those who are in that situation now, maybe you've got younger students who are just starting high school, and people want to know, how can I avoid that? The freshman year seems a little young to start preparing for the ACT, but parents need to be preparing. And if the more parents know, the more that you can help your student early on. So for example, somebody just asked me this in my group yesterday, and she had never thought of this before. She's got an 8th grader. And she said, I know we don't really need to be starting, with the tests yet, but what should we be doing? And I said, get articles. And one website that I love is sciencedaily.com. It's not just science articles, but it's science things that kids are into. Like, hey, did you know they just discovered this? It's health related things, but it's also got psychology and sociology. There's a lot of information on that website. So start there, read an article as a family and talk about it as a family. It's a family bonding event. It's not you saying, hey, what'd you learn at school today? And the kid's like, nothing, You're actually find something that you're interested in, that your child is interested in. You get the child to actually read the article, and the parent actually reads the article. So then you ask the child some questions, and those are comprehension-based questions. What did you get out of it? That's a main idea question right there. If they can summarize what they read in a few sentences without getting deep into all the details, that's a huge skill that you're building 8th grade, freshman year, and it's going to make the ACT reading, when it becomes a test and a score, and then ultimately merit money, so much easier because they're used to it. Plus, you're doing another thing that is very hard to study for the ACT. It's what I call cultural literacy. So there are just words and phrases that students by junior year and senior year have never seen before. Like there's a term on one of the ACT passages, nom de plume. Now, most of us adults, although some of us adults may not even know nom de plume, that means your pen name, like Mark Twain with Samuel Clemens, nom de plume. Well, this word in this isn't even used to mean a pen name. In this passage, it's used simply to be a nickname. And it ends up being kind of key to really understanding what's going on. How's a junior or a senior in high school to know that? So and that's just one example of the sorts of things you may encounter in reading a lot as a family, or just discussing, and short things. They don't need to be, you need to read a novel as a family, although that's a cool thing that some people do. And it builds up that cultural literacy. So when they see phrases, they know what they mean. So that's one step.
I
That's just
love
one tiny little thing that can be done.
I love that advice so much because I mean, I don't know if you know about my background is, I had actually taught SAT and ACT prep before I was a math teacher, and I trained tutors for Kaplan test prep. And
Mhm.
that was always a huge struggle as a tutor to help students on the reading comprehension. Um, because it's one of those things where sometimes, you only have like 4 sessions with a student, and there's only so much that you can build up their reading skills and their comprehension skills in that period of time. And so
Right.
I love what you're saying, because really what you're saying is, you can practice this, but in a fun way that's not just about test prep. You're teaching your
Right.
kids about so many different interesting things. You're having a bonding conversation as a family, and you're building those skills, which in all honesty is one of the harder skills to build up in a short period of time with test prep.
It is. It's just an internalized skill. And when you do this, you can do that. Now, another skill, especially if parents have students that you've got an advanced student on your hands, they're motivated, print that article out and ask you as a parent, find a particular word. Look for a capitalized word, a long word, an easier to skim for word, and ask them if they can find the word. You could even make it a game, like how
Mhm.
fast, and have the different kids in the family, see how fast they can find different words, because that skimming skill is a huge difference on whether you are able to finish the ACT reading and the ACT math,
Time.
um, and science as well in time, is
And
that being able to skim. And a
yes.
little trick that, believe it or not, I just learned this in the past few years, is to actually use your finger in the middle of the page. It's a speed reading trick when you're skimming for a word. So you've got the column and you put your finger down the middle of the column. If your eyes, there's all sorts of science behind this. If your eyes follow that center line of your finger, it's more likely to find the word anywhere on that line. So you just do that. Ooh, there it is. Even if it's like over on the side of the line. So if you could start with that. What about math? There's a lot of math things. I would say geometry. So there's not a lot of geometry on the SAT, but there's a lot of geometry on the ACT. If your student is going to be taking the ACT, then when they are learning those geometry concepts, if you can do things in your family that support and enhance that so that they don't forget the formula for area of a square, or what is the circumference of a circle. I do this in my real life when I had to pull up my carpet and change out my floors, and I had to figure out how many of this, size of a tile, and what this area of my room was, and it was an uneven shape, so I had to do that because that's on the ACT as well. So if you are doing remodeling and that sort of thing, anything that involves area and perimeter, have your child get that tape measure and figure out the area and figure out the perimeter. They won't forget that. And that alone is like 2 or 3 math problems on the ACT, just knowing area and perimeter and knowing how to deal with it.
Right, right. Oh, that's great advice. I love that. It's so fun.
Make it real. Parents have to make it real. I mean,
It is.
whenever instruction is just in your head and just on paper, and you take a test and you forget it, it's not relevant to your life. When you can pick out the things that are relevant to your life, then you don't feel like you're doing test prep with your kids. And you're not just helping them with test prep, right? You're helping them with their grades and their motivation to learn. So when we can, that's how I see test prep and the whole college career, because the college journey. Because what else are you doing? You're motivating your students to want to get involved in things. You're finding out what their interests are. And even though it might be just 15% of the entire decision, looking up to senior year and what college they'll be accepted to, having students who are unique and are interested in things and have been involved in some sort of a extracurricular, that's sports is great, but what can they do that's in addition to sports? What are their interests? Are they going to college with a, I don't know what I want to major in, or do they already have a focused interest? Start young, especially if you know your child is a potential high scorer. Because if you know your child is a potential high scorer, then you need to be thinking early about what could get you merit money without really putting the pressure on the kid. Like, you have to score a 30 or else you can't go to college. You don't want them to feel like that.
Yeah, so actually, for parents of freshmen, maybe who are not familiar with National Merit Scholars and merit money and stuff like that, can you maybe walk them through a little bit about that? What does that mean? And what they can do to sort of prepare their kids for that?
Absolutely. I actually have a program called First Steps for Freshmen, and I will be happy to share with you here what's included in that. So what I do have them do is I do get a pre-ACT that they can practice at home. And you know what? It doesn't even matter if you decide on what kind of test taking student your child is. Do you want to sit and have them, hey, just take this test and let's see what you think of it, and then we'll talk about it, and you time them and you do it all right? Or you sit there with them, or maybe hand it to a tutor that is already working with your child and just go problem by problem, ignore timing. We're talking freshmen here with the pre-ACT, and just work through, read the passages with them, just get them familiar with it. So I've got a pre-ACT test, and then I've got all the answer keys and all the scoring information that you can do at home. And so it's important that they know what's going to be on the test. That is the first thing. I'm also a classroom teacher, and that's the first thing my students always ask me. What's on the test? How many questions? How long do we have? Is it short answer or multiple choice? And yet some parents, and I'm not putting them down because they've been told this by teachers and they've been told this by other people. They're like, oh, I don't want to put pressure on my students, so I'm just going to throw them into the test the first time with no prep and have them take the test. And I feel like, that could create test anxiety. Then they're taking a test, they don't know what even to expect. So my philosophy is the opposite of, it's less stressful to take a test without prep. It's more stressful to take a test without prep.
I couldn't agree more.
But the kind of prep that you want to do early on is low cost and a little bit of time a day. Like, I don't recommend, like, even for my juniors, I don't recommend more than 20 minutes a day. So they get to do like an hour and a half tutoring a week. And then the homework is just a little bit a day. So with your freshmen, maybe it's just a little bit a week, and you dig into the test so you know what to expect. Key with that, and especially with math, is that way your child can recognize when they learned it in school, oh, that was on the pre-ACT. That was one of the questions that in January my mom and I didn't know how to do. And now I recognize that that was something, so I better pay attention in school.
I
So
love that. It helps for the motivation for school, actually.
yeah. So a lot of our higher scoring students or our gifted students take geometry. It depends on where you are in the nation as well. But geometry is typically a 10th grade class, but a lot of our higher scoring and gifted students are taking geometry freshman year. By junior year, they have forgotten sometimes some of the basic things, like, okay, I remember area and perimeter, but which was which? Like, they don't remember which formula was which, that kind of thing. But if they already know that once they learn it in school with their teacher, it's something that this is something is not going to be, I'm take it on the test and I forget it. This is something I need to remember for the ACT. Just knowing that puts like that flag on the moon, right? It just puts that stake that says, ah, I need to remember perimeter for the rest of my life. Any, the outside shape, the outside, it's like if you put a fence around this shape and you count it up in whatever units they give you, that's perimeter. It's pretty easy to remember, but students, I feel for kids. They're learning so much every day. 7 classes a day, boom, 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 boom. You can't remember it all. So as parents, as for parents, I would say you take the pre-ACT test with your freshmen. You take it by yourself. Know what's on it so that you can, at first the parents tell me, oh my gosh, this is what they're asking my kid to do. Okay. So then they're like, maybe they do need a little bit of, I need to plan for some tutoring sophomore or junior year. But just be familiar with what's on the test so that, because it may be easier for you as a parent to be able to say, oh, let's stay with the area and perimeter example. Oh, you're learning that. Remember that was on the ACT and we didn't know how to do it then? Let's pull out that ACT question. Did your teacher teach it this way? Do you recognize that this is the same thing? And just go piece by piece. There are also books available that break down, and it is specifically talking about math, but they've got it in English and other areas. But specifically in math, there are books that you can get that will break it down and give you a chunk of area and perimeter ACT type problems, a chunk of, let's go up to algebra 2, I think, simultaneous equations. Is that in algebra 2?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like simultaneous equations. That's another one that my juniors are like, oh yeah, I learned this a month ago, but now what do I do? Is it substitution? Wait, exactly how? So my advice to parents is little by little, get familiar with the test. Also, the other thing that I have in my program is you get emails once a month, just once a month email, and it's got targeted task lists. Pull out your pre-ACT and read one reading passage, and talk about it with your child. And then over the course of a week, do a few questions a day. So it's done like a checklist. So parents can say, okay, I'm doing a little bit every month, every adds up, and we've done a little bit. The parents know exactly what to do. I put, this isn't really test prep, but we add scholarships in there because there are scholarships that you can apply for when you're a freshman. So every month, if I can find one, I will find a freshman scholarship that you can apply for. So that'll be one of your tasks. One of the tasks is talk to your child's guidance counselor about next year's classes. There are things parents do need to inform themselves of that if they don't ask, they're not going to know.
That was going to be my next question is, when talking to guidance counselors, what are some things that parents should ask?
Well, here's an example. Let's look at the foreign language requirement. Some colleges require 3 consecutive foreign language classes, but your school district may only require 2. So if you know that you're interested, you want your child to be a legacy and go to the college you went to, or they're already, we've got kids here in New Orleans that they want to go to LSU because they love the Tigers, right? And that dream may go away or they may stick with LSU. Well, find out early what are LSU's requirements if that's where your child, if they've got a school that they have their heart set on, go to their website. And that's one of the things that I list in my little checklist. So you take that, what's required, and you go to your student's guidance counselor and you ask them to help you prepare a course list that is going to satisfy those requirements. Especially, let's say, like let me use myself as an example. I knew from an early age I wanted to go into journalism. So I took all the classes in high school that I knew would help me on that path and would look good for, like, we had a newspaper class. So I took all the newspaper classes. I figured that out, but what if it's a huge school and the parents don't get to talk to the guidance counselors a lot, and they don't know that we have a newspaper class, we have a creative writing class, and we have a yearbook class. You've got to talk to your child and your guidance counselor to find out which would be the best for them. What if the newspaper class only allows you to take it for 2 years in a row, but the journalism, the yearbook class allows you to take it freshman year all the way through senior year to show that continuity? So these are the questions to ask, and these are the questions to look at. Another thing that you want to look at, and this is more like just guiding your child's expectations, is that a lot of the public schools, not so many private schools, but a lot of public schools have what's called senior short day. We make it so that our students can fulfill their required number of hours before they are finished with their senior year. So some seniors only take 4 classes and they leave at noon. That does not look good it lowers your class rank. And it doesn't look good on a college application. If your goal is to, get the minimums, get the state scholarship and go to the state school, and the student is using that time to do an internship, plan for it. That's great. In fact, talk to your guidance counselor about, can this not be called short day? Can it be called internship and look like a class? Because they do have that.
Ooh, that's a great idea.
But a lot of that is creative stuff that parents have got to ask. You've got to ask first. These poor guidance counselors, they are so overwhelmed. So get to know the guidance counselors. That's the first thing, is back to as a freshman. Just email them, show up at any live events once we have those. If your school offers college admission nights, things like that, some schools do. Get to know the guidance counselors so your student is top of mind, and so they can picture your kid when you call them. So yeah, just ask them questions. Math. There are your required math classes, and then there are advanced math classes. Decide early if you are going to be guiding your child to those advanced math classes. Another thing to talk about is AP classes versus dual enrollment classes, because there are benefits to both. You may have an option. Some of the smaller schools, if you want to take trig in an advanced class, it's got to be AP. They have AP trig, they don't have dual enrollment trig. But if you have an option, but you have to pay for both of them, even in a public school. But in AP class, you can pass the whole class, not pass the final AP test, and not get college credit.
Right,
A
right,
dual enrollment class, you pass the class, you get your college credit.
right, right.
So ask these questions. Let your guidance counselors know what your goals are.
And
Which
I
comes
think
back to the idea of working with somebody to just have those conversations about, what are my goals?
right, right. Well, and that's what I love about your membership for parents, is that you just have this nice little checklist. It takes a lot of the thought out, because as we're talking, there are so many different things to think about and ask and do. And so I do love that idea of just having a quick monthly checklist, of things to go through and think about. It just, I think, eliminates some of that stress of not knowing what to do. Am I doing the right things? Am I on the right place for where my kid is?
Exactly. And I created it because as a tutor, I developed relationships with the whole family and with the parents, and they ask me all sorts of questions, like the things that I'm talking about here. Doesn't it make sense to have that person early on to build a relationship, a go-to person to ask all those questions? And then and then you'll already know, oh, I should have had my student take the ACT for the first time at the end of their sophomore year, but I didn't call a tutor until September of junior year and didn't already know that.
Right, right.
Right.
Awesome. So for parents who would like to follow up with you or learn more about the membership, where can they find out about it?
The best and the easiest place, especially since we're on Facebook right now, is just to send them to my Facebook, and then you'll see posts that have the link to find out about the first steps for freshmen and the other things that I offer. So it's Facebook at Link Private Tutoring, LINKPRIVATE tutoring, all one word. So if you just Google, or not Google, but search on Facebook for Link Private Tutoring, you'll find me there, and then all the information is available there. I do have a website, which is the same, linkprivatetutoring.com, and you can find the information there. But I think a lot of it is really easy to just go to Facebook. And that's why my parents group is free, by the way. So if you let me mention that, you can find it from my Facebook page, but you can also just search for groups, ACT Test Prep Answers.
Fantastic. You know what? I will leave the links to all of these in the notes for the video as well as the podcast. That way it's easy to find. So you can go to if you're listening to the podcast version of this, you can go to the show notes, or if you're watching this on Facebook, I will right after this go ahead and add those links in here so it's easy to find. So before we go, Laura, I had one more question for you. It's sort of something I thought would be a fun question to end the episodes on, since the podcast is Allison Loves Math, and I invited you on here because I know you love math, and other guests. My final question for you is, why do you love math?
Why do I love math? Let me tell you this. I love math. I would have never said this 10 years ago because it's fun. It's fun when you get the question right. It's a puzzle, right? So if you like puzzles, you like math, and you can look at the ACT or the SAT math the same way. Let me tell you all, I'm an English teacher. I'm a journalism major. Math was not my thing. I was the kid who didn't take a math class senior year in high school. I thought I couldn't do trig. Now I know I could have. Anyway, now that I've gone back to it, because I teach ACT prep and I teach it in school, I still, once a student is at about a 27 in math, I refer them over to Allison because I can help them up on that basic. And the other fun thing about it is I can communicate that math from the point of view of somebody who's not a math expert. And I can use my logic. It's like, this is logical though. And so it's fun. Math is fun.
It is. Math is fun. ACT math is fun, even.
Oh, I'm such a geek.
I love it. I love it. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. This was so much fun, and it was just wonderful to have you on the podcast.
Well, it was wonderful. Thank you. I hope I've helped some of your listeners.
Oh, absolutely. Definitely. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening. Bye.
Bye-bye.